They left me drowning in student debt while they funded my brother's every whim, never once asking if I could make rent or afford groceries. But now, after months of radio silence, they're knocking on my door with their hands out demanding $15,000 for their dream kitchen renovation. They expect me to write the check like some walking ATM, as if I owe them for the privilege of being ignored. Well, this time they picked the wrong daughter to manipulate. My name is Emily Carter, and for the first time in my 32 years, I can hear myself think. The morning fog rolls off Casco Bay like a gray blanket, and I watch it from my kitchen window while my coffee brews. My apartment here in Seaside, Maine, isn't much a cramped one-bedroom above Mrs. Patterson's bakery, but it's mine. The rent is $600 a month, utilities included, and the smell of fresh bread drifts up through the floorboards every morning at 5:30. It's the kind of life I never thought I'd have: quiet, predictable, and blissfully free from the constant financial emergencies that used to define my existence. I've been working at Harbor Point Strategies for 8 months now, helping small business owners navigate their finances. It's ironic. Really, I spent years being terrible with my own money because I was always bailing out my family, and now I'm teaching others how to budget and save. The pay isn't spectacular, $42,000 a year, but it's steady. More importantly, every dollar I earn stays in my account unless I choose otherwise. That's the part that still amazes me. Choice. 10 months. That's how long it's been since I've heard from my parents back in Oak Ridge, Ohio. 10 months since I packed my Honda Civic with everything I owned and drove 900 miles east without telling them where I was going. I left behind my childhood bedroom with its faded pink walls, the kitchen table where I'd sit with my laptop paying their bills while they watched TV in the next room, and the driveway where my father would guilt me into writing checks for his latest emergency. The silence has been golden. My phone sits on the counter. Notifications turned off for everything except work. No more texts from my mother asking if I could help out just this once with the electric bill. No more calls from my brother Mark wondering if I could spot him money for concert tickets or car repairs or whatever else he needed that week. No more elaborate guilt trips about how family takes care of family, conveniently ignoring that the care only flowed in one direction. I take my coffee to the small balcony overlooking the harbor. Lobster boats are already heading out for the day, their engines puttering steadily through the calm water. The fishermen wave to each other, a tight-knit community where everyone knows everyone else's business. But in a good way. Mrs. Patterson told me that Tommy Russo, who runs the bait shop, asked about me last week. "That nice girl from Ohio," he called me. Not the walking ATM or the family disappointment. Just a nice girl who minds her own business and pays her rent on time. At 7:15, I walk the 4 blocks to the Harbor Point office, a converted Victorian house with creaky floors and windows that stick when it rains. My desk faces the street, and I can see the elementary school across the way where kids are already gathering for another day. Normal kids with normal problems. Not like Mark, who at 28 still calls our parents when he needs money for groceries. My boss, Janet, arrives with her usual thermos of coffee and stack of files. She's in her 50s, divorced, with 2 grown kids who actually call her just to chat. "Good morning, sunshine," she says, which is what she calls everyone before 10 ready for another thrilling day of profit margins and tax planning. I laugh because it is thrilling. In a way, my old life never was. There's satisfaction in helping Sam Rodriguez figure out how to expand his auto shop without going into debt, or showing Patricia Mills how to set aside money for her daughter's college fund. Real problems with real solutions, not the manufactured crises that used to dominate my days. Around 11, I'm reviewing a client's quarterly statements when my phone buzzes with a notification. For a split second, my stomach clenches, that old Pavlovian response to unexpected contact. But it's just a text from my landlord, Mrs. Patterson, letting me know the bakery will be closed Thursday for her grandson's wedding. I realize I'm holding my breath and force myself to exhale. That's the thing about trauma. Your body remembers the patterns even after your mind knows better. For years, every phone call, every knock at the door, every unexpected piece of mail could mean financial disaster. My parents had trained me to be perpetually on edge, always ready to open my wallet and solve their problems. But not anymore. Not here in this little coastal town where the biggest drama is usually whether the Patriots will make the playoffs or if the harbor master's new parking rules are too strict. Here, I'm just Emily, the financial advisor who lives above the bakery and takes long walks on the beach after work. At lunch, I treat myself to a lobster roll from Captain's Catch, eating it on the pier while seagulls circle hopefully overhead. $12 a luxury I would never have allowed myself back home, where every spare dollar went to keeping my family afloat. Now it's just lunch, purchased with money I earned and chose to spend on myself. The afternoon passes quietly. I help a young couple create their first budget, walk them through the basics of building an emergency fund. They're so grateful, so eager to learn. It reminds me why I left Ohio, not just to escape my family's financial manipulation, but to find something worth building on my own. As 5 o'clock approaches, I gather my things and say goodbye to Janet. The walk home takes me past the post office, where I wave to Margaret behind the counter. She's worked there for 30 years and knows everyone's business, but she's never once asked me why I don't get mail from family or why I moved here alone. That's the beauty of small-town life. People mind their own business until you need them not to. Back in my apartment, I heat up leftover pasta and settle on my tiny couch with a book. The silence is profound. No raised voices, no urgent whispered phone calls about money, no guilt-laden sighs designed to make me ask what's wrong, just the distant sound of waves and the occasional car passing on Harbor Street. 10 months of this peace. 10 months of choosing how to spend my time and money. 10 months of rebuilding myself from the ground up, one quiet evening at a time. I should have known it was too good to last. The envelope arrives on a Tuesday, slipped through the mail slot while I'm at work. Mrs. Patterson mentions it when I stop by for my usual morning coffee and blueberry muffin. "Fancy letter for you, dear," she says, wiping flour from her hands on her apron. Looks important thick paper, one of those return address labels with the gold trim. My stomach drops before I even see it. I know that cream-colored stationery, know the pretentious script font my mother uses for what she calls proper correspondence. The return address confirms my worst fears, Robert and Linda Carter, 12 Oak Lane, Oak Ridge, Ohio. I carry the envelope upstairs like it's a live grenade, setting it on my kitchen counter while I stare at it. 10 months of silence. And now this. The weight of it feels wrong, too heavy for a simple letter, too formal for any message that should exist between a daughter and her parents. My hands shake as I tear it open, and a smaller envelope falls out, along with what looks like a professionally printed invitation. The invitation is what hits me first, elegant gold lettering on heavy cardstock announcing the Carter Family Kitchen Renovation Project. There's even a little drawing of a whisk and rolling pin in the corner, like this is some kind of charity gala instead of what it actually is. Inside the smaller envelope, folded in my mother's careful handwriting, is a letter that makes my blood pressure spike with every word. Dearest Emily, we hope this letter finds you well and thriving in your new adventure. Your father and I have been discussing how proud we are of your success and independence. You've always been our little go-getter. We're writing to share some exciting news. After 30 years in our kitchen, we've finally decided to give it the makeover it deserves. We're planning a complete renovation that will create a beautiful space for family gatherings and holiday celebrations. You know how important family time is to us, and we want to create an environment where everyone feels welcome and loved. The total cost will be around $45,000, and we're asking our children to contribute what they can to make this dream a reality. We know you understand the value of family and home, and we thought you might want to participate by contributing $15,000 to the project. This would cover the beautiful granite countertops we've been dreaming about. We're not asking for the money immediately. Of course, we know you're responsible with your finances, and we're confident you can manage this contribution over the next few months. Perhaps you could set up automatic transfers of $1,000 per month. We want to start construction in the spring. We miss you terribly and can't wait to have you home for the kitchen's grand reveal. Mark is so excited about the project he's even offered to help with some of the lighter work during his free time. All our love, Mom and Dad. P.S. We've enclosed some preliminary design sketches so you can see how lovely it will be. We're particularly excited about the wine refrigerator and the farmhouse sink. I read the letter 3 times, each pass making me angrier than the last. Not once do they ask how I'm doing. Not once do they mention missing me for any reason other than my potential financial contribution. The casual assumption that I'll just hand over $15,000 more than a third of my annual salary is breathtaking in its audacity. The design sketches are glossy and professional, clearly from some high-end renovation company. Marble backsplashes, custom cabinetry, a kitchen island bigger than my entire living area. This isn't about creating a warm family space. This is about showing off to the neighbors, about having something to brag about at their church social events. What makes it worse is the tone. Our little go-getter, you understand the value of family. We're confident you can manage this contribution. It's manipulation wrapped in affection, guilt disguised as trust. They've elevated financial coercion to an art form. I think about Mark's contribution helping with light work during his free time. Not money, of course. Never money from the golden boy who's never held a job for more than 6 months, who still has them pay his car insurance and cell phone bill. No. Mark gets to contribute sweat equity while I'm expected to fund their granite countertop fantasies. The automatic transfer suggestion is particularly galling. They want me to set up a system that will bleed my account dry without requiring them to ask again. $15,000 in monthly installments, as casual as paying for Netflix. They've calculated exactly how to extract the maximum amount with minimum effort on their part. I sit at my kitchen table, staring at the harbor through my window, trying to process the sheer entitlement of it all. They cut me out of their lives the moment I stopped being useful. Didn't call when I moved across the country. Never asked if I was lonely or struggling or happy. But the second they need money, substantial money, suddenly I'm family again. Suddenly, I'm the responsible one they can count on. The wine refrigerator detail is what finally breaks something inside me. They want me to fund a wine refrigerator when I've been drinking $2 bottles from the grocery store, treating myself to a decent bottle only on special occasions. They want granite countertops when I'm eating off mismatched plates I bought at Goodwill. I pull out my phone and scroll through my contacts until I find my parents' number. My thumb hovers over the call button for a long moment. Part of me wants to call immediately, to scream at them about their selfishness and entitlement. But another part of me, the part that's learned to protect itself these past 10 months, knows better. Instead, I fold the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. I set it on my counter next to my coffee maker, where I'll see it every morning as a reminder of exactly who they are and what they think of me. $15,000. They want me to pay $15,000 for the privilege of being ignored until they need money again. For countertops that will grace a kitchen I'll probably never be invited to enjoy. For a family gathering space where I'll always be the outsider who funded their dreams, but was never truly welcome to share them. The audacity would be almost impressive if it weren't so infuriating. I make myself a simple dinner pasta with marinara sauce, a far cry from the gourmet meals they'll be preparing on their new granite surfaces. As I eat, I stare at that cream-colored envelope and feel something cold and determined settling in my chest. They think they can disappear from my life and then waltz back in with their hands out. They think I'm still the same pushover who used to write checks without question, who absorbed their financial emergencies like it was my job. They're about to learn how wrong they are. That night, I can't sleep. The letter sits on my counter like a toxic presence, and every time I close my eyes, memories flood back with painful clarity. I'm 22 again, sitting in the financial aid office at Ohio State, watching the counselor's face grow increasingly grim as she reviews my FAFSA. I'm sorry, Miss Carter, but your family's income disqualifies you from most need-based aid. Have you discussed payment options with your parents? I remember the sick feeling in my stomach, knowing exactly what my parents would say. They'd already made it clear that college was my responsibility. Mark needs us to focus on his expenses right now. My mother had explained when I first brought up tuition costs. His learning disability requires so much extra support, and those tutoring sessions aren't cheap. You've always been so capable, honey. We know you'll figure it out. Mark's learning disability, the magical excuse that justified everything from private tutors to a brand new laptop every semester. The same learning disability that somehow never prevented him from playing video games for 12 hours straight or memorizing every stat of his favorite sports teams. But it meant he needed less pressure, which translated to mom and dad covering his tuition, room and board, meal plans, and generous monthly allowances while I took out loan after loan. $43,000. That's what I owed when I graduated, not counting the credit cards I'd maxed out buying textbooks and covering living expenses. While Mark got care packages filled with homemade cookies and gift cards, I was eating ramen noodles and working double shifts at the campus bookstore. I remember calling home during my junior year, voice shaking as I explained that I might have to drop out. The loans aren't covering everything, and I can't work any more hours without my grades suffering. I just need help with rent this month, maybe $500. Oh, sweetie, my mother had sighed. This is just such bad timing. Mark's car needs major repairs, and your father's been out of work for 2 weeks with his back. Maybe you could pick up some babysitting. You're so good with children. 2 days later, Mark posted Instagram photos from his spring break trip to Panama City Beach. The back pain hadn't stopped Dad from installing a new deck that same month. But the financial manipulation didn't end with college. If anything, it got worse once I had a real job. Suddenly, I was the family safety net, the one they called when the water heater broke or when Mom needed dental work or when Mark crashed his car for the 3rd time. "You're so lucky to have such a stable income," Dad would say, right before explaining why he needed to borrow $800 for car repairs. "We'll pay you back as soon as the insurance settlement comes through." The settlement that never materialized, just like the dozen other promises of repayment over the years. I kept a mental tally, watching it grow from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands. Emergency room copays when Mark broke his wrist skateboarding. Property tax payments when they forgot to save for them. A new washing machine when theirs broke, because you know how important it is for Mom to have reliable appliances. Christmas gifts for extended family because they'd overspent on Mark's new gaming setup. The worst part wasn't the money itself, it was the way they asked. Never directly, never with acknowledgement of what they were really doing. Instead, it was always wrapped in family obligation and false urgency. "We hate to ask, but," followed by some crisis that required immediate financial intervention. And if I hesitated, if I dared to mention my own financial struggles, I'd get the wounded silence treatment until I apologized and wrote the check. Mark, meanwhile, lived like a trust fund kid. New clothes every season, concerts and sporting events, dates at expensive restaurants. At 28, he'd never paid for his own insurance, never worried about rent, never felt the stomach-dropping panic of overdraft fees. When his credit cards got maxed out usually on video games and bar tabs, guess who got the tearful phone call about helping family in need? I remember the last straw, the incident that finally drove me to pack my car and leave. Mark had gotten fired from his job at a local electronics store for showing up late too many times. Instead of finding a new job, he decided he wanted to go back to school to study graphic design, not a practical program at the community college, but a $40,000 private art school in Columbus. "Emily, you have to help us," my mother pleaded over Sunday dinner. This could be Mark's chance to really find himself, to build a career he's passionate about. We can cover some of it, but we need you to co-sign his loans. With your credit score and income, he'll qualify for better rates. I stared at them across the dinner table, the same table where I'd sat with my laptop, paying their bills while they watched TV in the next room. "Co-sign his loans, Mom. I'm still paying off my own student debt." "But you have such a good job now," Dad interjected. "And this is family. Mark really needs this opportunity." "What about my opportunities? When did anyone care about what I needed? The silence that followed was deafening. Then my mother's voice, cold and disappointed. I never thought you'd be so selfish, Emily, after everything we've done for you. Everything they'd done for me. The phrase still makes my blood boil. What exactly had they done? Raised me with the understanding that my worth was measured by my usefulness, taught me that love was conditional on financial contribution, trained me to feel guilty for wanting to keep the money I earned. I'd refused to co-sign Mark's loans, and the temperature in the house dropped to Arctic levels. Suddenly, I wasn't invited to family dinners. Suddenly, my calls went unreturned. When I announced I was moving to Maine, my mother's response was a hurt silence followed by, "Well, I suppose you've made your choice about what's important to you." 10 months of peace, 10 months of keeping my money in my own account, of buying things I wanted instead of things they needed, 10 months of learning what it felt like to be valued for who I was instead of what I could provide. And now they want $15,000 for granite countertops. The irony is breathtaking. They can find $45,000 for a kitchen renovation. Clearly they've figured out their finances without my constant subsidies, but they still expect me to pay for the privilege of being part of a family that only wants me when I'm writing checks. I think about all the family gatherings I'll never attend in that beautiful new kitchen, all the holiday meals I'll never be invited to share. They want me to fund their happiness while ensuring I'll never truly be part of it. As dawn breaks over Casco Bay, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges, I finally understand what I have to do. They think they can use me and discard me and use me again whenever it's convenient. It's time to show them exactly how wrong they are. The next morning, I call in sick to work, not entirely a lie. My stomach churns with a mixture of rage and determination that feels remarkably like the flu. I need time to dig through the digital graveyard of my relationship with my family, to document exactly what they've put me through. I start with my laptop, opening Gmail and searching for every email exchange from the past 5 years. The pattern emerges immediately, so obvious I'm embarrassed I never saw it clearly before. Every single message from my parents falls into one of 2 categories: requests for money or guilt trips about family obligation. There are no "how are you doing" emails, no forwarded jokes or family photos, no casual check-ins about my life. The earliest email in my search is from 4 years ago. "Sweetie, Dad's truck needs new tires and we're a little short this month. Could you help us out with maybe $400? We'll pay you back from his next paycheck. Promise, love you." The next one, 2 weeks later. "Hi, honey. Just wanted to follow up on the tire money. Dad really needs to get to work, and you know how unreliable his old car is. Thanks so much, XOXO." I scroll through dozens of similar messages, each one a masterclass in emotional manipulation. They never ask directly, it's always couched in family crisis language, designed to make me feel guilty for having money while they suffered. The promises to pay me back are sprinkled throughout like confetti, meaningless little flourishes that were never intended to be honored. But it's the tone that really gets to me. The casual assumptions, the entitled expectations, the way they write as if my bank account is a shared family resource. "Could you transfer $500 to our checking account?" Not "could you loan us?" Or "could we borrow?" Just a simple request to move money from one family account to another. I open a spreadsheet and start documenting every request, every transfer, every emergency that required my immediate financial intervention. The numbers are staggering. Over the past 5 years, I've given them over $38,000, not loaned given, because despite all their promises, not a single dollar was ever repaid. The bank statements tell an even grimmer story. I log into my online banking and download 5 years' worth of records, searching for every transfer to their account. The pattern is relentless: 200 here, 800 there, a $1,000 emergency transfer on Christmas Eve when they supposedly couldn't afford gifts for Mark. My phone buzzes with a text message, and for a moment my heart races, thinking it might be them following up on their kitchen renovation demand. But it's just Mrs. Patterson, asking if I'm feeling better and offering to bring up some soup later. The kindness of it almost makes me cry. Here's a woman who's known me less than a year, showing more genuine concern than my parents have in decades. I turn my attention to social media, logging into Facebook for the first time in months. My parents' profiles are exactly what I expected: carefully curated snapshots of family happiness that tell a very different story than reality. Dad's profile picture shows him and Mark at a baseball game last summer, both grinning and holding expensive craft beers. Mom's timeline is full of inspirational quotes about family loyalty and photos of elaborate dinners she's cooked for Mark and his rotating cast of girlfriends. But it's what's missing that breaks my heart all over again. I scroll through 2 years of family photos, birthday celebrations, holiday gatherings, random Sunday dinners, and I'm nowhere to be found. Not just absent from the photos, but completely erased. There are pictures where I should be, group shots where the spacing suggests someone was cropped out, family gathering photos that I know I attended but where my presence has been digitally eliminated. The most damning evidence comes from last Thanksgiving. I remember the photo clearly: all of us crowded around their dining room table. Mom's famous turkey centerpiece surrounded by side dishes I'd helped cook. In the original photo, taken on Mark's phone, I'm sitting between him and Dad, laughing at something Mom said. On Facebook, that same photo appears on both my parents' timelines, but I've been carefully edited out, the image cropped so it shows just Mark, Mom, and Dad around a mysteriously spacious table. The turkey is the same, the tablecloth is the same, even the lighting is identical, but I've been erased as if I never existed. They've done this systematically, I realize as I scroll further. Every family photo from the past 2 years has been edited to remove my presence. I'm a ghost in my own family history, a person so thoroughly eliminated that someone looking at their social media would never know they had a daughter. But they kept my money. Every transfer, every emergency payment, every time I bailed them out of financial trouble, that part of our relationship they preserved carefully. I screenshot everything: the cropped photos, the email requests, the bank transfers that total more than most people's annual salary. My phone's photo album fills with evidence of their calculated manipulation and systematic erasure of my existence. Around noon, I find the smoking gun. It's a Facebook message thread between my parents from 8 months ago, discussing their Thanksgiving photos. The privacy settings must have glitched because I can see the entire conversation. Mom, should we post the family dinner photo? Dad, better crop Emily out first. People might ask awkward questions about where she is now. Mom, good point. I'll edit it before posting. Much easier to explain if she's just not in the picture. Dad, exactly. Out of sight, out of mind. Though we should probably reach out soon about helping with the kitchen project. Mom, let's wait until we have all the quotes. Might as well ask for the full amount we need. 8 months ago, they were already planning to hit me up for kitchen money while simultaneously erasing me from family photos. The calculation is breathtaking: remove the daughter from the family narrative while keeping her as a potential financial resource. I sit back in my chair, staring at the mountain of evidence I've compiled: screenshots, bank records, email threads, social media posts. It's all here, the complete story of how they used me, discarded me, and now want to use me again. For years, I told myself that family was complicated, that love took different forms, that maybe I was being too sensitive about their requests for help. But the evidence is undeniable. This wasn't about love or family obligation. This was about exploitation, pure and simple. They don't miss me. They miss my bank account. The realization should hurt more than it does, but instead, I feel something like relief. For the first time in my adult life, I can see the situation clearly, stripped of all the emotional manipulation and guilt-laden rhetoric they've used to control me. They want $15,000 for granite countertops in a kitchen where I'll never be welcome, to fund gatherings where my presence will be digitally erased, to finance a family happiness that explicitly excludes me. It's time to give them an answer they'll never forget. I wait until 7:30 that evening to make the call. timing it perfectly for when they'd be finishing dinner and settling in for their nightly TV routine. I want them comfortable, unprepared for what's coming. My mother answers on the second ring, her voice immediately brightening with that saccharine sweetness she reserves for moments when she wants something. Emily. Oh, honey, we were just talking about you. Did you get our letter about the kitchen? Isn't it exciting? We've been looking at sample tiles all week, and the granite selections are just gorgeous. Your father thinks the Venetian gold would look stunning with the cherry cabinets we picked out. I let her ramble for a moment, marveling at how she can discuss $45,000 in renovations as casually as planning a grocery list. There's no acknowledgement of the 10 months of silence, no question about how I'm doing or whether I'm happy. Just an immediate assumption that I've called to discuss funding their home improvement fantasies. Mom, I interrupt, my voice deliberately calm. I need to ask you something. Of course, sweetheart, what is it? When's the last time you asked me how I was doing? The question hangs in the air for a moment, and I can practically hear her mental gears shifting, trying to figure out where this is going. Well, we ask about you all the time. Honey, we care about you so much. Really, because I've been going through our email history, and I can't find a single message where you asked about my life, my job, my happiness, anything that wasn't related to money. Not one. Her laugh is forced, brittle. Oh, Emily, you're being dramatic. Of course we care about. When I moved to Maine 10 months ago, did you ask why? Did you wonder if I was running from something? Or toward something? Did you worry about me driving across the country alone? Silence. Did you even notice I was gone until you needed money for your kitchen? Emily, that's not fair. You left without telling us where you were going. We were hurt and confused. We gave you space because we thought that's what you wanted. The lie is so smooth, so practiced, that I almost admire its audacity. Space. Is that what you call it when you crop me out of family photos and post them on Facebook like I never existed? Another pause, longer this time. I don't know what you're talking about. The Thanksgiving photo. Mom. I was sitting right between Mark and Dad, laughing at your joke about the turkey timer. But in the version you posted online, I've been erased, very carefully edited out, like I was never there at all. Emily, you're misremembering. I have screenshots, Mom, of the original photo and the edited version. I also have screenshots of your Facebook messages with Dad, discussing how you should crop me out before posting because people might ask awkward questions about where I am now. The silence stretches so long I wonder if she's hung up. When she finally speaks, her voice has lost all its artificial sweetness. We don't know what you're talking about. Out of sight. Out of mind, that's what Dad said. Though you should probably reach out soon about helping with the kitchen project. That was you, Mom, planning to erase me from family history while keeping me as a potential ATM. I hear muffled voices in the background. She's covering the phone, whispering urgently to my father. When she comes back, there's a new strategy in her voice, a shift to wounded innocence. Emily, I think you're having some kind of breakdown. This is all very concerning. Maybe you should talk to someone. I am talking to someone. I'm talking to the woman who's asked me for over $38,000 in the past 5 years while never once asking if I could afford it, if I was struggling, if I needed help with anything. That's not we always intended to pay you back. Bullshit. The word hangs in the air like a bomb. I've never cursed at my mother before. Never dropped the pretense of respectful daughter even when she was bleeding me dry. Emily Marie Carter, you watch your language when you're speaking to your mother. Or what you'll cut me out of family photos. Stop calling unless you need money. Pretend I don't exist until it's convenient to remember I have a bank account. You've already done all of that. I hear my father's voice in the background, and then he's on the phone, using his reasonable, paternal tone that used to make me fold like origami. Emily, your mother's upset. Let's all calm down and talk about this like adults. Okay, Dad, let's talk like adults. Here's an adult question. Why should I give you $15,000 for a kitchen renovation when you've spent the last 10 months pretending I don't exist? Why, we haven't been pretending anything. We've been respecting your decision to move away and start fresh. We thought you needed space. You thought I needed space, but you assumed I'd still be available for financial emergencies. That's interesting logic. This isn't an emergency. Emily, this is about family, about creating a space where we can all come together and… Dad. I haven't been invited to a family gathering in almost a year. Mark gets Sunday dinners and birthday parties and holiday celebrations. I get edited out of photos and asked for money via formal letter with gold-trimmed envelopes. You're being unreasonable. No, Dad. Unreasonable would be expecting your daughter to fund your luxury kitchen renovation after you've systematically excluded her from the family. Unreasonable would be asking for $15,000 in monthly installments while providing no emotional support, no genuine communication, no actual relationship. We raised you better than this, Emily. Family takes care of family. The phrase that's been used to manipulate me for years, and suddenly I see it clearly for what it's always been, a one-way street with me as the eternal giver and them as the eternal takers. You're right, Dad. Family does take care of family. So tell me, when's the last time you took care of me? When's the last time you asked what I needed, what I was struggling with, how you could help me? Silence. I'll save you the trouble of trying to remember. The answer is never. You've never once asked how you could help me, but you've asked me to help you dozens of times, and I always said yes. I said yes so often that you started assuming I always would. Emily, I'm not finished. You want to talk about family. Let me tell you what family looks like in my world. Mrs. Patterson, my 70-year-old landlord, brought me soup when I was sick last month. Janet, my boss, asks about my weekend plans and remembers when I mention being nervous about something. Tommy from the bait shop waves to me every morning and asks how my book club is going. These people, who've known me less than a year, show more genuine care and interest in my well-being than my own parents have shown in decades. That's not true. It is true, Dad, and the fact that you can't see it, that you're more upset about losing access to my bank account than about losing me as a daughter, tells me everything I need to know about what I really mean to this family. The line goes quiet except for the sound of my father's heavy breathing. When my mother comes back on, her voice is cold. All pretense of maternal affection finally dropped. Fine, Emily. If that's how you feel, then I guess we know where we stand. But don't come crying to us when you realize what you've thrown away. You're right, Mom. I do know where we stand, and I'll never come crying to you again. I hang up before she can respond, my hands shaking with adrenaline and something that feels suspiciously like relief. For the first time in my adult life, I've said no, not just to the money, but to the entire toxic dynamic that's defined our relationship for as long as I can remember. It feels like freedom. The confrontation leaves me wired for hours, pacing my small apartment as adrenaline courses through my veins. But as the initial rush fades, something colder and more calculating takes its place. They think this is over, that hanging up on me was some kind of victory. They have no idea what's coming. I spend the next 3 days meticulously organizing my evidence like a prosecutor building a case. I create a detailed timeline spanning 5 years, documenting every financial request alongside the complete absence of genuine family communication. I organize the screenshots of cropped photos chronologically, showing the systematic erasure of my presence from their social media narrative. Most damning of all, I compile their private Facebook messages discussing their plans to manipulate me for kitchen money while literally editing me out of family history. The bank statements are particularly revealing when laid out in sequence. Transfer after transfer, emergency after emergency, each one accompanied by promises of repayment that never materialized. $38,467 over 5 years, more than Mark's entire college tuition, which they paid without question. By Friday evening, I have everything organized in a folder on my desktop labeled Family Truth. But simply having the evidence isn't enough. I need the right platform, the right audience, the right moment for maximum impact. That's when I remember the Oak Ridge Community Facebook group. It's one of those small-town social media groups that my mother obsessively participates in, the digital equivalent of the church social circle where appearances matter more than truth. She's constantly posting there about Mark's achievements, sharing photos of her elaborate dinner parties, offering unsolicited advice about everything from gardening to child rearing. It's where she performs the role of perfect mother and pillar of the community, carefully curating an image of family harmony and moral superiority. The group has over 3,000 members, basically everyone in Oak Ridge plus former residents who moved away but stayed connected to hometown gossip. It's exactly the kind of audience that would make my parents' carefully constructed social image crumble. I spend Saturday morning crafting my post, writing and rewriting until every word carries maximum impact. The tone needs to be factual rather than emotional, letting the evidence speak for itself while avoiding anything that could be dismissed as a bitter daughter's rant. The post begins simply, "Hi everyone, this is Emily Carter, formerly of Oak Lane. Some of you might remember me from high school. I'm writing to share some information about my family that I think the community should know, particularly given how often my parents present themselves as examples of family values and financial responsibility. Over the past 5 years, my parents have requested and received over $38,000 from me for various emergencies and temporary financial assistance. These requests came with promises of repayment that were never honored and were accompanied by emotional manipulation designed to make me feel guilty for having any financial stability while they struggled. What makes this particularly painful is that during this same period, they fully funded my brother Mark's college education, living expenses, and recreational activities, while I took on over $40,000 in student debt because they claimed they couldn't afford to help with my education. Recently, they contacted me after 10 months of complete silence to request $15,000 to help fund a $45,000 kitchen renovation. The request came in the form of a formal letter with gold trim, suggesting automatic monthly transfers from my account to theirs. But here's what really prompted me to write this post. I attached the side-by-side photos, the original Thanksgiving picture showing our complete family, and the edited version they posted on social media with me carefully cropped out. The evidence is undeniable and devastating. This is the same family dinner, photographed minutes apart. The second image is what my parents chose to share publicly, digitally erasing my presence while privately planning to request money from me for their home renovation project. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but because I believe people should know who they're dealing with when they interact with Robert and Linda Carter. They present themselves as loving parents and financially responsible community members, but their private behavior tells a very different story. For anyone wondering why I moved to Maine, this is why. I finally realized that being family shouldn't mean being treated like a personal ATM while being systematically erased from family history. So, I've attached documentation of their financial requests and the Facebook messages where they discuss cropping me out of photos to avoid awkward questions about my absence. Make of it what you will. I include carefully selected screenshots, email requests for money with their entitled tone fully visible, bank transfer records showing the massive total over 5 years, and most damning of all, their private messages discussing photo manipulation and kitchen renovation strategy. The final paragraph is my masterpiece. To anyone considering entering into business relationships or financial arrangements with my parents, please be aware that their promises of repayment may not be reliable, and their public presentation of family harmony doesn't reflect their private treatment of family members. I wish I had known this information years ago. It would have saved me considerable heartache and financial hardship. I hope sharing this helps others avoid similar experiences. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. So, best wishes to everyone in the Oak Ridge community. Despite everything, I have many fond memories of growing up there among genuinely caring people. I read the post 17 times, checking every fact, every screenshot, every carefully chosen word. There's nothing vindictive or emotional about it, just cold, hard evidence presented with devastating clarity. At 2:30 on Saturday afternoon, I click post. The response is immediate and overwhelming. Within minutes, comments start flowing in. Former classmates expressing shock and support. Neighbors sharing their own uncomfortable experiences with my parents' financial requests. Church members mentioning how often my parents had spoken about their successful daughter, while apparently excluding me from family events. Sarah Mitchell, who graduated 2 years behind me, comments, "I always wondered why you never came home for holidays anymore. Your parents made it sound like you were too busy with your fancy career to visit family. This explains a lot." Tom Rodriguez, who lives 3 houses down from my parents, adds, "Your dad borrowed my hedge trimmer last year and never returned it. When I asked about it, he said family emergencies had him distracted. Makes sense now." Even Mrs. Henderson, my old Sunday school teacher, weighs in, "This is heartbreaking. Emily, your parents often spoke about how proud they were of your independence and success, but they never mentioned that you weren't part of family gatherings anymore. This doesn't reflect the Christian values they claim to uphold." The comments keep coming, and I watch the reaction count climb 30 reactions, 50, 100, shocked faces, angry faces, heart reactions from people expressing sympathy. Each notification represents another person seeing through my parents' carefully constructed facade. But the real victory comes at 4:15, when I get a notification that my mother has posted in the group. I click on it eagerly, expecting damage control or angry denials. Instead, I find something even better, a rambling, defensive post that makes her look even worse. There are 2 sides to every story, and some people twist the truth when they're having personal difficulties. We've always been a loving, supportive family, and anyone who knows us can attest to that. Family finances are private matters that shouldn't be aired publicly by bitter family members who don't appreciate everything that's been done for them. The response to her post is swift and brutal. Person after person pointing out that she hasn't denied any of my specific claims, just thrown around vague accusations about bitterness and twisted truth. The evidence I provided is too concrete, too well documented for generic denials to work. As I watch the community that raised me dissect my parents' reputation in real time, I feel something I haven't experienced in years: genuine satisfaction. They wanted to erase me from family history while keeping me as a financial resource. Instead, I've erased their credibility while keeping the documentation that proves exactly who they really are. The reckoning has begun. By Sunday morning, my post has over 400 comments and has been shared 63 times. The Oak Ridge Community Facebook group is buzzing with activity like nothing I've ever seen, and my parents' reputation is disintegrating in real time. The comments have evolved from initial shock to detailed accounts from other community members who've had their own uncomfortable experiences with my parents. Janet Williams shares how my mother constantly bragged about having such a successful daughter in finance, while simultaneously complaining about how career-focused young people don't make time for family anymore. The cognitive dissonance is staggering when laid out publicly. Mike Thompson, who owns the hardware store where my father shops, drops a bombshell. Bob Carter still owes me $800 from last spring when he ordered special materials for that deck project. Said his daughter would take care of it, but the payment never came. Now I understand why. The revelation opens floodgates. Comment after comment reveals a pattern of my parents using my supposed wealth and success to justify their own spending while implying I'd cover their debts. They'd essentially been using my reputation as collateral for their own financial irresponsibility throughout the community. But the real devastation comes when extended family members start weighing in. My mother's sister, Aunt Patricia, who lives 2 towns over but follows the Oak Ridge group, posts a comment that makes my stomach drop. Linda told me at Christmas that Emily had become too selfish and materialistic to be part of family celebrations anymore. She said Emily was too good for family dinners and only cared about money. I felt so sorry for them, having such an ungrateful daughter. I can't believe I fell for their lies. Uncle Jim, my father's brother, follows up with his own revelation. At my son's wedding last year, Bob and Linda made a big show of explaining why Emily wasn't there, said she was too busy with her career to make time for family events. They seemed so hurt and disappointed. I even offered to help them reach out to her. Turns out they never wanted her there in the first place. The comments paint a picture of systematic character assassination. While editing me out of photos and excluding me from gatherings, my parents had been telling elaborate lies about my supposed selfishness and materialism. They'd turned my absence into evidence of my moral failings rather than their rejection. Even worse, they'd been leveraging these lies to gain sympathy and financial assistance from extended family and community members. Poor Robert and Linda, struggling with their ungrateful daughter who has money but won't share it with family. Poor Robert and Linda, working so hard to maintain family traditions while their successful daughter abandons them for her career. The irony is breathtaking. They'd managed to make themselves the victims of my success while simultaneously bleeding me dry financially and erasing me from family history. By Sunday afternoon, the post has reached people far beyond Oak Ridge. Former classmates who moved away years ago are commenting, sharing their own shock at discovering the truth behind my sudden disappearance from family events. College friends who remember me constantly stressed about money while Mark lived lavishly are adding their own testimony to the growing pile of evidence. Lisa Parker, my old roommate from Ohio State, writes, I remember Emily eating ramen noodles for weeks while Mark posted Instagram photos from expensive restaurants. She told me her parents were going through a tough time and couldn't help with her expenses, but they seemed to have plenty of money for Mark's lifestyle. I always wondered about that. The post goes viral in the way that small-town scandals do, spreading through networks of high school connections, church groups, and family relationships until it reaches far beyond its original audience. My parents' carefully constructed image isn't just cracking, it's completely shattered. Around 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon, my phone starts ringing. It's Mark, and I let it go to voicemail. He calls back immediately. Then again. Finally, I listen to his message. Emily, what the hell is wrong with you? You're destroying our family with this crazy post. Mom's been crying all day, and Dad's talking about taking legal action. You need to delete this right now and apologize. People are saying horrible things about us, and it's all your fault. This is so messed up. Call me back. I delete the voicemail without responding. Mark, the golden child who never had to worry about money or family approval, doesn't get to lecture me about family loyalty now. The calls continue throughout the afternoon, first from Mark, then from my parents' number, then from numbers I don't recognize. I let them all go to voicemail, but I don't listen to the messages. Whatever they're saying, whatever threats or guilt trips or desperate pleas they're making, I don't want to hear them. This time, the conversation happens on my terms, in public, with evidence and witnesses. By evening, the comments section has become a support group for people who've been manipulated by my parents. Stories pour in about borrowed tools never returned, promised payments that never materialized, elaborate explanations for their daughter's absence that painted me as the villain. Mrs. Rodriguez shares that my mother had asked to borrow money for Mark's car insurance last year, explaining that their ungrateful daughter refused to help with family expenses despite her high salary. Mrs. Henderson reveals that my parents had requested donations for Mark's education fund at church, claiming they were struggling to support their son while their successful daughter chose career over family. The web of lies is staggering in its scope and audacity. They'd turned my absence into a fundraising opportunity, using community sympathy for their abandoned parent narrative to generate financial support while simultaneously extracting money from me through guilt and manipulation. But perhaps the most damning revelation comes from Carol Mason, who works at the bank in Oak Ridge. While she can't share specific account information, she posts a carefully worded comment that speaks volumes. I can't discuss customer details, but I will say that certain members of our community have been less than truthful about their financial situations when requesting assistance from various sources. Sometimes people who claim to be struggling are actually quite comfortable, and sometimes people who appear successful are carrying heavy burdens others have placed on them. The implication is clear. My parents aren't the struggling family they've portrayed themselves to be. The $45,000 kitchen renovation isn't a stretch for them, it's a luxury they can afford, but would rather finance through manipulation and community sympathy. As Sunday night falls and the comment count approaches 500, I realize I've accomplished something I never intended. I didn't just expose my parents' treatment of me. I've revealed a pattern of deception and manipulation that's affected dozens of people in the community. The kitchen renovation they wanted me to fund. It's never going to happen now. Not because they can't afford it, but because they'll never be able to show it off. Their dream of hosting elegant dinner parties in their beautiful new space has crumbled along with their reputation. They wanted granite countertops and farmhouse sinks to impress their neighbors. Instead, they got public humiliation and social exile. Sometimes the best revenge is simply telling the truth. 3 weeks later, I'm sitting on my balcony watching the sunrise over Casco Bay when my phone buzzes with a notification from the Oak Ridge Community Facebook group. Someone has tagged me in a new post. It's from Sharon Mitchell, who owns the local diner where my parents used to hold their weekly coffee meetings with other community leaders. The post is brief but devastating. Just wanted everyone to know that the Carter family dinner party scheduled for this Saturday has been canceled. Apparently, there weren't enough RSVPs to make it worthwhile. Funny how that works when people finally see someone's true character. I scroll through the comments, watching as the social fallout continues to ripple through my parents' carefully constructed world. Their church group has quietly distanced itself from them. The neighborhood association meetings they used to host have moved to other locations. Even Mark's girlfriend, according to several comments, has been noticeably absent from recent family events. The kitchen renovation project that started this whole mess. According to Janet Williams, who works at the permit office, the construction permits were withdrawn last week. No explanation given, but everyone understands. When your entire social circle discovers you've been lying and manipulating people for years, hosting dinner parties in your dream kitchen loses its appeal. My phone rings an Ohio number I don't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, then listen to the message out of curiosity. It's a lawyer, hired by my parents, threatening legal action for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The voice is stern and professional, but there's something hollow about the threat. Everything I posted was documented truth, supported by screenshots and bank records. They can threaten all they want, but they can't sue me for telling the truth with evidence. I delete the message and block the number. If they want to waste money on lawyers instead of granite countertops, that's their choice. The real victory came in a message I received yesterday from Aunt Patricia. After decades of believing my parents' lies about my selfishness and materialism, she reached out with a heartfelt apology and an invitation to visit her in Columbus. "I have 30 years of family gatherings to make up for," she wrote. "Your parents painted such a terrible picture of you, but now I see who was really the problem." Even Uncle Jim called to apologize and explain that he genuinely thought I was the one causing family problems. "Your father was so convincing," he said. "He made it sound like you'd abandoned them after they supported you through college. I never knew they made you pay your own way while funding Mark's entire education." The truth has a way of spreading, creating connections where lies once built walls. I'm rebuilding relationships with extended family members who thought I was a selfish, ungrateful daughter. They're discovering that I'm actually the family member who sacrificed for years to support parents who repaid my loyalty with manipulation and erasure. But the sweetest revenge isn't the social humiliation or the canceled dinner parties or the withdrawn kitchen permits. It's the peace I feel every morning when I wake up in my little apartment above the bakery, knowing that my money stays in my account unless I choose to spend it on something that brings me joy. Last week, I bought myself a beautiful ceramic dinnerware set, nothing fancy, but it matches, and it's mine. I ate dinner off those plates while watching the sunset over the harbor, surrounded by the quiet contentment of a life free from financial manipulation and emotional blackmail. Yesterday, Mrs. Patterson mentioned that the apartment below mine is becoming available next month, and she's thinking of converting the building into condos. "I'd love for you to have first option to buy," she said. "You've been the best tenant I've ever had." Buying my own place, building equity instead of funding other people's dreams, making choices based on my own priorities instead of managing other people's manufactured emergencies. It's a life my parents never wanted me to have, because a financially independent daughter can't be controlled or manipulated. They wanted $15,000 for granite countertops in a kitchen where I'd never be welcome. Instead, I used that money to buy freedom from their toxicity and build a life where I'm valued for who I am, not what I can provide. My phone stays silent now except for calls from Janet asking about weekend plans, Mrs. Patterson sharing gossip from the bakery, and new friends here in Maine who care about my happiness without expecting anything in return. No more emergency requests. No more guilt trips disguised as family obligation. No more carefully worded manipulations designed to make me feel responsible for other people's choices. The best part, I sleep soundly every night, knowing I'll never again wake up to discover I've been edited out of family photos while being expected to fund family expenses. I'm done being the ghost in their financial machine, present only when they need money and erased when they want to project family harmony. Some people might say I went too far. That family should forgive and forget, that private matters should stay private. But the truth is that my family stopped being private the moment my parents started lying to the community about my character while using my reputation to manipulate others. They thought they could have it both ways, enjoy the benefits of having a successful daughter while erasing me from their narrative when my presence became inconvenient. They learned the hard way that you can't control someone's story forever, especially when that someone has receipts. My new life in Maine isn't just an escape from their manipulation, it's proof that you can rebuild yourself after years of being used and discarded. Every morning I wake up in this little coastal town. I'm reminded that family isn't about blood or obligation or guilt. It's about people who see your value beyond what you can provide, who include you in their joy without expecting you to fund it, who miss your presence instead of just your bank account. The kitchen renovation money they demanded, I'm saving it for my down payment. The granite countertops they dreamed about. They'll have to settle for whatever they can afford without my contributions. The family gatherings they wanted to host. They'll be much smaller now that the community knows who they really are. Sometimes the best revenge isn't planning elaborate payback schemes. Sometimes it's simply refusing to be anyone's victim ever again and showing the world exactly who was telling the truth all along. My parents wanted to erase me from their story while keeping me as a financial character. Instead, I erased myself completely and wrote my own ending. And it's a much better story than anything they could have imagined. Thank you so much for listening to this revenge story. I hope Emily's journey from financial doormat to empowered truth teller resonated with you. Sometimes the most powerful weapon against manipulation is simply shining a light on the truth. I'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening to this story? Are you at home, on your commute, or somewhere else entirely? Please leave a comment below and let me know what you thought about Emily's approach to dealing with toxic family dynamics. Did she go too far? Or was this exactly the wake-up call her parents needed? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life revenge stories, and please share your own thoughts about family boundaries and financial manipulation. Have you ever been in a similar situation? How did you handle it? I read every comment and love connecting with listeners who faced their own challenges with toxic relationships. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you in the next story.